What's going on, guys? I hope you are having a fantastic week, weekend, day, holiday. Anyways, what day is it? It's Monday. It's not the weekend at all. Anyways, moving forward, wait a minute. No, it's Tuesday. I am losing track of time. Babe, is it Monday or Tuesday?
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. I'm losing track of time, guys. The holidays have me all screwed up because I am not used to not working constantly, even though I've still been putting a lot of time in on YouTube and on eBay, even with the holidays. My wife can definitely contest to that. Anyways, let's go ahead and move forward. I have some things we're going to talk about, some cards we're going to talk about here, some of my favorite cards, but I'm also faced with some of my least favorite dilemmas. Anyways, so what's today's topic about? We're going to be talking about regrading, cracking the slabs to regrade, versus cross grading versus just buying a better grade. Buying the same grade from a different card. Hopefully you get a card that's in better condition because you're buying the card, not the label. We're going to talk about those things because they were up for discussion this morning. I was having some conversations with some friends of mine and trying to navigate my options here because the cards that I'm talking about, and this applies to any cards, but really it gets dicier. It gets more difficult to make these decisions when you reach a level of collecting where you've got higher end collectibles, more expensive cards that are in the several hundred, several $1,000 range. And you know, you can make these decisions with modern, but I don't think it's as difficult of a decision to make, because modern is everywhere. But vintage cards, very nice vintage Pokemon cards, they're harder to find. They're harder to find in the condition you want. They're harder to find in a condition that is on par with the grade. A lot of times, and I've talked about this in the past, we get, you know, PSA 10s that really shouldn't be PSA 10s. And you're still going to see this even with modern. 151 is a great example. All the nicked, damaged corners and edges on 151 cards like Blastoise, Charizard, Venusaur, and they're still getting 10s. So it's not like it's just vintage old certs. But when I say vintage old certs, I mean certs that are in the 2s, you know, in the 1s, 2s, 3s, 4s. This is a 7, so this is 70 millionth, 74 millionth cert, 74 millionth sub. Anyways, when I'm talking about like older certs, I'm talking about stuff that's in the 20 million, 10 million, the teens, 30 millionth. Those 10s typically have a lot of issues. We spent a video on that. Why is this relevant? Because these are some of the dilemmas that I'm faced up with, is whether I'm going to cross grade, whether I should cross grade some of my cards that are higher end that I'm happy with, but I do want better. Also, I do want to apologize. You're going to hear my daughter in the background. You're going to hear the washing machine. You might hear Diana clinging and clanging in the kitchen. She's making... What are you making right now? What are you making? Some bread?
Huh?
What are you making?
Bread.
She's making some bread. So you might hear some stuff in the background. Anyways, you guys know this is a loud household, so you're going to hear all kinds of stuff in here. Anyways, moving forward, yeah, these are some of the dilemmas that I'm faced with, and I thought, you know what? This might not be the most relevant topic. It might not be the most helpful topic or be the best advice, but I'm going to try my best to navigate through this topic and this discussion of, you know, should you be regrading, cross-grading, or just buy the better grade, buy the better card, buy a nicer card that's not going to drive you crazy like some of these cards drive me crazy. I think this is honestly going to be a very relatable video. I think a lot of people are going to struggle with this type of problem, or I'm just very unlucky when it comes to picking up high-end cards, and there just happens to always be something wrong with them. That tends to be my luck, and while I have built a very nice collection of high-end cards, there are very few of them that are not flawed in a way that bothers me, right? Like, what the flaws that I don't mind, okay? Here's the flaws that I don't mind. Little bit of edge wear, little bit of corner wear, a little bit of whitening. I'll take whitening any day over a dent or a crease or, just a tiny little minor indentation, like just a pinhole indentation, like anything. And I've said this before, and someone thought this was funny, but the structural integrity of the card. As long as the structural integrity of the card, as long as it is a flat, straight card, I could honestly care less about, edge wear, corner wear, and surface wear, right? And those are kind of the subgrades, right? We have subgrades with Beckett, but there are always, my friend put it well, there are always going to be subgrades on a card. Even PSA, the subgrades are there. They're just invisible. You can't see them, but they're there. Believe me, the way they're grading these cards, they're grading them based on subgrades. God, I love that Nido King. There's basically, surface doesn't bother me that much, which I guess dents or dings or creases would be kind of surface damage, but micro scratches, things like that, it just really doesn't bother me that much. So corners, surface, and edges, even the centering really doesn't bother me that much. I could care less about centering. I would rather buy a card that's off center but has a perfectly clean back. So centering is probably the least of my issues. I really don't care if a card isn't well centered. I honestly even think it's kind of cool sometimes if a card isn't well centered. Like, it's a plus if it's well centered, but most cards are well centered. So why would I care if it's slightly off center? It comes from the factory that way. I don't care. But if it's got a clean back, no edge wear, no corner wear, fantastic. But dents, dings, creasing, anything, I guess that would fall on the surface. Other than micro scratches, deeper scratches, like the dents, the structural integrity is very important to me. Again, I can't stress that enough. Okay, so going into this, cracking for re-slabbing. Okay, this is very exciting. Okay, and I want to crack one of these cards, right? So let's go ahead and bring up this card. Our first guest here on the show. Okay, we've got Nido King here, Crystal Nido King. It's phenomenal. This card is absolutely phenomenal. It is by far it might be the best conditioned crystal card that I own. And I have a really clean Lugia, but I think this Nido King honestly tops it. There was a time when I was about to trade this Nido King for a Nido King that had a swirl that was also a 9. There was also a time when I almost traded this Nido King for another Nido King that had some corner and edge wear, but it was a 9. It was a slightly older cert. This is a slightly newer cert, being in the 7s. I turned both of those down. One, because I didn't want to spend more money. I'm already in it pretty high with this card. $850 plus 7.25% sales tax in North Carolina. So I'm in on this card, I want to say $900 even. Okay, that's what I'm in on this card. If I were to send it to the eBay vault, which I do want to make a separate video on the vault because it's very exciting. And I think I'm going to send this card off very soon. I haven't done it yet, but I want to send it off. I've gone through the process. I was very close to just sending it off, but I wanted to wait till I send it off all my mail, all the stuff I'm selling on eBay. Anyways, if I were to sell it on eBay Vault for $1,000 or $1,100, I would make do on this card and I could roll it into something that's a higher grade. So Nido King is kind of the main topic of discussion here, because when I got this card, I was very excited for it. But one thing that I overlooked, which is something that you have to be careful when you're buying cards online, is the PSA scans, the photos. Is everything clearly shown? It's very hard to tell from just photos, but I have a high resolution brand new iPhone. You guys should be able to see this. But this Nido King has what annoys me more than anything. I love this card and I've been willing to look past this for a long time. But up here, you guys can see that. Pardon my dirty fingernails. You guys can see that right there. There's two little black specks of dirt. There's two black specks of dirt right there. Let's get the light on that a little bit better. There's two little black specks of dirt right there, and it drives me absolutely insane. Now let's take a look, obviously, at the surface. Let's take a look at the surface. I think I'm going to resub this card. I'm very tempted. The surface is very clean. We have pretty much little to no surface scratching at all on the surface of this card. It's phenomenal. The hollow pattern is phenomenal. It even has a hollow orb on his horn, which he has Poison Horn as an attack right here. So I just think it's very fitting that he has a hollow orb on his horn. I really take pride in those little hollow patterns on cards that I really, really love. And this is just a very cool one. And then his arm, his hand, he's holding another little orb right there. It looks really cool. I like little intricacies like that. But yeah, the specs drive me crazy. Now let's take a look at the back of the card. I think this is a great way to decide what I'm going to do here, guys. And if I end up cracking this, I want to make a separate video. I don't know if it'll be tonight or tomorrow. I don't know when I'll upload a separate video, but I want to crack this card potentially. I don't see any issues on the back. I don't see why this card would not get another 9, but we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about this, the dangers, the issues, what are the best options. But you guys can see this card is super nice. You might see something on the actual slab holder, but the card itself is mint. Like, there's almost no whitening on the back of this card at all. It could have even gotten a 9 because of the specks of dirt on it. Anyways, this is the dilemma that I'm faced with. I could either crack the slab and submit this with some other cards. I think I'm about to submit a bunch of these 151 Mew UPC promos. I've been touting these Mew UPC promos for a long time, and that is mainly due to the fact that they're very accessible, they're very easy to get your hands on, and yet in a PSA 9, they're still fetching, twice as much as what they should be fetching, and then a PSA 10, you're getting like 5 times, 6 times your return on that, depending on what you're buying them for. But if you're opening them out of the product, let's say they're $5, it costs there's like a special $14 to grade right now for bulk with PSA. Honestly, let's call it 20 bucks right there. If it hits a 10 and it goes for $150, even after your eBay fees, you're still gonna make really good money on these Mew UPC promos. So this is something that I'm definitely considering, even though they're selling fine, selling in auction. I just think slabbing that particular card is a good move. But anyways, I was thinking if I do that submission, this would be a good card to throw in there to also crack it and send it in with those cards and have it regraded. And in the process, clean this tiny speck of dirt off. These specks of dirt drive me insane. This is something that I'm sure happens with a lot of cards. You are not supposed to clean the cards before you send them to PSA. You're not supposed to. You could damage the card. There's a lot of people that think they know what they're doing and they clean cards and they damage them. I have a buddy that's kind of a professional at this, so I'm probably going to ask him to help me out in terms of cracking the slab, cleaning it properly with whatever, method he uses to clean the cards. And just lightly take off those dirt specks, if it is dirt specks, because it very well could be ink specks, which would be a major issue. I would be, hey! Aspen's banging on the door. That's happened before, so there's no surprise there. She knows I'm making a video and she wants to be in here with me, so I understand that. Yeah, so I could crack it and regrade. There's option number 1, and this is what the whole basis of the video is about. Is kind of hinged on these cards that I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do, but I thought it was a decent topic. Or option number 2, we could cross it over. We could cross it over to another grading company, see if we could get a better grade, maybe go with Beckett, but then we're shelling out more money. So there's that option. I didn't talk about that with my friends, but I do think that this Nidoking would probably get like a Beckett 9.5, and maybe with that gold label go for even more than what the PSA 9 would go for. And then there's the last option. I could just buy another PSA 9. I could just buy another PSA 9. I keep seeing them. They're not as clean as this one. I don't want the other PSA 9s. So I'm honestly thinking about buying a PSA 10 Crystal Nidoking because I'm tired of worrying about issues. But even with PSA 10s, you have to be concerned what you're getting into, especially at the price point that you're spending, because PSA 10s are no bargain, right? They are, the first to make market movements. They're always the first, but PSA 9 falls very close behind PSA 10 pricing, and usually you can get more bang for your buck with a PSA 9 card, and it can still be very, very close to mint, like this Nidoking. So those are my options. Right now, it's really between buy a PSA 10 Nidoking or buy another PSA 9 and just sell this 9, but I think I'm selling myself short, because PSA doesn't offer you subgrades. This would be a 9 that I feel has very, very high subgrades. And for that reason, because I actually love this card itself, more so than the actual label, the slab, the grade, I think it would be worth it to spend that extra amount of money. Now, I will have to end up spending probably $100 to get Nidoking regraded. This is an issue because Nidoking is not like bulk. I'm not going to pay a $15. It could slip into bulk, but it's very highly unlikely that it would. And then another issue that my friends brought up is that if it got damaged and I needed compensation, I would only be compensated up to $200, which is the bulk tier grading value. You know, that's as high as it goes, $200, and that would be heart-wrenching for this card to get damaged in bulk grading, and then I get compensated $200 for a card that I have $900 in. So we have a lot of serious concerns here, and these are concerns that anybody's going to have if they have to make these choices. Most people just end up selling their cards. Most people probably take losses on their cards. And then I would say the people who are the luckiest sell their card for a slight premium. The next person doesn't care about the flaws. The next person is an OCD like I am. You know, maybe I sell this Nidoking. It is up on eBay right now. I figured I would put it up, you know, with a Hail Mary of like, if someone buys this card and sees it for what it is, which is a very strong 9, if someone buys this card, then bam, I'll just roll it into a 10. And I don't even care if the 10 is still a flawed 10. I'll roll it into a 10. I just got to make sure the front is super clean. Whatever's on the back, I don't care. Sometimes, you know, there's an argument, buy the card, not the grade, but with PSA 10s, they have a set market price. You are not, I mean, same with 9s, but you are really not going to get much wiggle room with a PSA 10. Right now, I am trying to figure out that wiggle room because I have made an offer for this Nidoking in a PSA 10. I do want to see what happens before I decide, you know what, screw it. I don't want somebody else's 9. I want the 9 that I originally picked out that got sold probably for a nice little decent discount. I got it for $850 plus the tax. Probably went for that. And that's pretty on par with market, but this is a very nice card. So I'm surprised I even got it for that. And something makes me feel like nobody bought it at that time because of the specks of dirt. So if I can get those specks of dirt off, then it's a win, okay? Anyways, moving forward, cross grading is being one of the options. So I have a card here that I think is very important when it comes to cross grading. And it's a card that I picked up at Collecticon here in Charlotte. You guys know, you guys who've been on the channel for a while, you've seen my Collecticon videos. I went through heck and back to make this card happen, right? I sold a lot of my collection. I sold my theme decks. I sold sealed booster packs, the vintage booster packs. I sold a lot of nice cards. I sold my first edition Blastoise, my first edition Venusaur, my Shadowless Charizard, 2 Shadowless Charizards actually, a base set 2 Charizard that was like PSA 7, but still, and I think $1,000. I traded and a first edition Charizard and a PSA 5, which I had 2 of because I was stupid enough to buy a thick and a thin stamp. I don't know why I did that, but anyways, I still have one of those Charizards here. It's the thick stamp, and I'm gonna bring that into the video here shortly. But it's just funny because this is an issue that, you know, I'm facing some tough decisions that I'm gonna have to make with some of my nicest cards, and it's stressful. These things are expensive. I don't want to make the wrong decisions here, and I don't want to shoot myself in the foot. Sometimes you just have to be happy with what you have, and that's genuinely an option that I haven't outlined here, but guys, if you like the cards that you have and they have some minor flaw, just be happy with it. That's solid advice. Just be happy with what you got. I can't be happy with what I've got. I have severe OCD. Things have to be a certain way. I want my cards to look a certain way. And as I've evolved and gotten more knowledgeable in this hobby of collecting cards, I have to have perfection in the cards that I'm going after that are expensive. If I'm spending a premium, I want premium quality, okay? I want premium quality. Those of you that are getting into higher end cards, that are buying expensive cards, whether it's what I like, English, vintage, grail, or Japanese, modern, it doesn't matter. But if you're getting into premium, you know that you expect premium. And that's why a lot of people are going with Japanese, because Japanese just has amazing quality, and the prices right now, especially for vintage grails, are amazing. 2 of my friends actually both own Nidoking Japanese in a 10. I think it's Wind from the Sea, but they both own them in 10s. And I'm still over here screwing around with English. Like, I still want English to work. I want to collect English, and I want to know, like, there are nice English cards out there. You just have to wade through all of the junk and all the bad 9s and bad 10s and terrible 8s. You guys know when I bought my Crystal Charizard, which I know we are on the topic about Rayquaza, but I go off in tangents. That's why you guys are here. That's why you watch my content, because I'm always going. Anyways, along with this Rayquaza, I bought a PSA 8 Crystal Charizard. Well, I traded for it at Collecticon. Seriously worth watching those videos. I made moves at Collecticon. And I'm very proud of myself and also slightly regretful because I feel like I got the short end of the stick on my deals. But that card I wasn't happy with. It was an 8 and I had to sell it. It was very stressful. It took a little bit for that card to sell, but I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to go through trying to recoup my money and get it back out of a card that's so expensive and I'm still unhappy with it. Anyways, moving forward, when we're talking about cross grading, that is an option that I'm thinking about for this beautiful Rayquaza, this Beckett 9 Rayquaza that has a really nice, I've pointed this out before, but it's my favorite part about this card. It's why I'm considering cross grading this card, is this hollow orb right there. This is one of the little intricacies with this hollow pattern that I love. I love that Rayquaza basically looks like he's forming an attack, charging up some kind of hyper beam in his mouth. It looks phenomenal right there. And other than that, the hollow pattern is very nice on this card. It's harder to show because of the layers of plastic. You know, in Beckett slabs, and this is one issue that I have with Beckett, it protects the card. It really does. It protects the card better than PSA does, but it also has some glare. It makes it harder to appreciate the card through all those layers of plastic. Let's go ahead and we even slip this guy out. It's been a while since I even looked at this out of the plastic display holder. See if we can get that hollow to pop back up. I love this card. This is always a treat to show on the channel. It's one of my there it is. It just has that sick hollow pattern in his mouth. It is one of my favorite cards of all time. It's become a big goal of mine to try and go after this card in a 10 potentially someday. Right now it's out of reach, but I imagine if I keep collecting the way I am and I acquire a lot of other Grail cards, I could trade all of them in someday maybe for a Rayquaza PSA 10. That would be amazing. But all grade aside, I love this card. The hollow pattern's amazing. The card is in phenomenal condition. And you know, my friends were genuinely asking me, like, Orion, like, do you like the card? Because if you like the card, there's honestly no reason for you to get rid of it. You should just cross grade. The dilemma with cross grading. So you send your card in, regardless of whether it's been graded, you're going to have to pay the same price, the grading charge, and that you would have to pay for a card like this if you submitted it raw. So they're going to crack your card open. They might even damage it while they're cracking it open. And then you're going to set your lowest minimum bid. But with PSA, cards get exponentially more expensive to grade with the higher value they get. And so this card falls under the tier of being under $10,000. Or right under $10,000. And for that reason, it would cost me $600 to have this card graded. It's already graded. It has grade subgrades. It's in a slab. Do I really need to get it regraded that badly? Probably not. And so this is a perfect example of, you know, maybe I should just be happy with this card, but I honestly think I'm going to end up probably selling it and upgrading to a higher grade. But these are the, you know, when you're looking at these cards and you're like, oh, it's in a Beckett slab, it's in a CGC slab, it's a deal. It looks like a really good deal. Or it's a PSA 8.5 or it's a PSA 8, but it looks like it should be a 9. You need to be really realistic and careful about how you assess these cards and their value, because there's going to be a huge premium on top of that. You know, you're going to pay the taxes on the card, then you're going to have it graded again. It's going to cost hundreds of dollars. You need to be really careful about this stuff because it could get very expensive very quick. Like if I sent the Nidoking and the Rayquaza in together, it would be $700 to get just these two cards regraded and slapped. And you know, that's painful. And I'm still thinking of it because this Rayquaza has an extremely unique holo pattern. And it's one of my favorite things about the card. There's even a part of me that feels like this card could be more valuable than any other Rayquaza out there, just for the simple fact of where that holo orb is, perfectly placed in his mouth. It's absolutely phenomenal. I love this card so much. But the other part of me just doesn't want to spend the extra money. So I've considered, there's a PSA 9 on eBay right now. It's $8,500. They'll take probably $8,000 for it. I've considered going that route and just selling my beloved Beckett that I picked up at Collecticon. I love this card, but I really, really want my collection to be uniform. So I really want to have everything being PSA. I even bought this display case because I really knew that I wanted it to be PSA, but I decided like, oh, it won't look that much different next to my other PSA cards because it's got a slab holder. Wrong. I still look at it and it just looks off. It just looks off, you know, seeing these two labels together. I know a lot of people are going to disagree and they're going to say, Orion, like, just chill, bro. You have awesome cards. Just chill with it. You don't need to cross grade it. You don't need to re-slab it. You don't need any of this. You don't need another one. Just enjoy what you have. But I am very particular, and I imagine other collectors at this level grow very particular as well. So these are important things to talk about, that when you are going after these cards, you want to be extremely thorough. Because while these are not like whale card entrepreneur, you know, money, it's not like we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know, on certain cards here. We're talking about cards that are like sub 10 grand. We're talking about cards that are 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. They're not like crazy money, but when you're spending that kind of money, it is a lot. When you're talking about a cardboard hollow foil card, it's crazy. It's crazy. And a lot of people probably think, Orion, you're crazy because you're collecting these high-end expensive cards. You know, you've got a family, you know, that you're taking care of. You've got a YouTube. It's doing well. Why do you need to have all this extra stuff? Because it's not about just the YouTube. It's not about like having certain cards to flex. It is just about the natural stages that you hit as a collector. And I've gotten way more picky than I used to be. I don't know when that exactly happened. Collecticon was probably where that started because I saw so much high-end stuff there. And I knew that's where I wanted to move towards. But I still am going to continue doing cheap auctions on eBay because I know that like, that's the fun of collecting, when you can just get cheap deals and find cheap cards. So you really aren't going to see cards like this go up for auction on my eBay store for probably quite a while. But in the meantime, I'm trying to figure out my collection goals. I'm trying to buy exactly what I want to need for my collection. And I'm struggling with a couple of these. So crossing over was definitely something I thought about with the Rayquaza, but the cost of getting it graded with PSA would be so much. So yeah, that's, you know, I may leave it be. And you know, obviously I would want to send it to PSA with this label. I would want to show them that like, yo, this got a 9. But then there's also the argument of if I cracked this Beckett, they might look at this Beckett 9 and be like, we're giving this guy a 10 for the Rayquaza. We're giving it a 10. So if I cracked it and it didn't even have the label in there, it could get an even higher grade. One of the my boy had a story where he bought a PSA graded 8 Poncho Charizard Pikachu and graded it with Beckett, and it ended up getting a 9.5. So, you know, it can be very beneficial to cross grades sometimes. And he sent that with the slab. They saw at Beckett that it was a PSA 8 and they gave it a 9.5. So these are the things that I've thought about too with like my Nidoking, is like, I know it deserves a better grade. And then with, you know, Rayquaza, you know, whether to keep it in the slab, whether just to sell it and go for a different Rayquaza. It's all very tough stuff because like when it's the slab or the label or, you know, stuff like that, that's your problem, like the card itself isn't the issue, then it puts you in a tight position because you're like, no, I want to grade this card. I don't want another 9. I want this card regraded because it's phenomenal. So yeah, you know, at the end of the day, I think most people are going to end up facing these same problems, and they're probably going to take the path of least resistance, which in my opinion is just buying the same card, buying a different card, buying it in a newer cert, which it's all subjective. Especially with grading, it's very subjective, whether it's old certs, new certs, you know, you never know what you're going to get. You really don't know what you're going to get, and you just have to be very, very thorough. And that's something that I wish I was a little more thorough buying all of these cards, asking for more photos, zooming in on stuff. You know, I just don't want to stress myself out. So I think a lot of times I put my trust in the sellers that they're providing something good. And for the most part, the seller that I got this from is J Rich Collectibles. I've gotten a lot of great slabs from him. Some of my best slabs. I got a Crobat when I got this Nidoking, and it's perfect. It's a perfect 9. So I know, you know, there's a lot of sellers that, you know, you're going to have really good experiences with. So, but I just need to be a little bit more thorough. And sometimes the path of least resistance is buying a nicer card. And that leaves us to another grail of mine that I'm, you know, struggling with lately, my Charizard card. So I'm almost done. I'm almost done, sweetheart.
No.
Anyways, this takes me back because this was the first expensive card I ever bought. This was the first several $1,000 card that I ever bought. I did buy some cards. I think I bought a Shadowless Charizard before this that I no longer own because I traded it for the Rayquaza. I think that was about $1,000. But that was about the most that I was willing to spend on any card, for that matter. I've been much more willing early on to spend more money on theme decks, booster packs, stuff like that, booster boxes, you know, cases of product. I've been more willing to do that than spend it on single cards. It took a while for me to come around to buying single high-end cards. So we've come a long way, but I remember when I got this Charizard, and I was just worried that it was, you know, legitimate or not. As you guys can see, there's very little surface scratching on the card. The centering could be better. The centering is a little bit off. It has a nice thick stamp. But overall, like the corners, the surface, everything is very, very clean on this card. And don't mind, these are scratches on the actual display case. But you guys can see these corners are crisp. The edges are crisp. This is a very, very clean 5, okay? And again, I'm probably going to end up selling it because it's the path of least resistance. But I'm also considering sending this to the eBay vault so I don't take a eBay fee hit on it. But yeah, so this PSA 5 Charizard, in my opinion, is more like a PSA 6 or a PSA 7. Very frustrating to me because I see a lot of 7s and 6s out there that really shouldn't be, in my opinion. As with really any card in any grade, you're going to find stuff that just shocks you. But if we look at the back here, we've really only got one side that is fairly flawed. The other two sides, you know, even very little edge wear, but I don't think this card deserved a 5. I think it should have done better than a 5, but it's got a decent little chunk taken out on the side. So we'll see what you guys think. But here's the back of the card. So this side is pretty good. This side's pretty good. The top is pretty good. We have very little whitening on the top. But then over here on this side, we've got a pretty gnarly chip right here. We've got some edge wear right here, edge wear right here. And maybe this side was just enough to dock the whole thing to a 5. But for me, I saw this and I saw an opportunity. I saw a card that I felt was undergraded. It's a thick stamp. It's beautiful. And I think I got this card for about 4.2. So with taxes on top of that, 4.5. So if I were to sell this to break even, I would need $5,000. But on eBay, if I use the vault and send it to the vault, $5,000 would be a $500 profit for me. And I could easily sell this for $5,000. I actually already had an offer for this card for 5.2. I want 5.5 for this card or 5.4. That may seem a little bit high for Charizards, but I really like this card and I'm attached to it. It is the first really nice high-end card that I bought. But I would like to get a 7 or an 8 or potentially a 9. I know the 9 market has come down a lot. It's around I want to say 17,000 is what you can get a PSA 9 for. Send that to the vault. Don't pay any taxes on it. Pull it out for 50 bucks. Boom, I just picked up a PSA 9 Charizard for 17 grand. And my line of credit would actually allow me to put that on my card, get 2% back on it, which would be a lot. It would be like $350 I would get back on the card, $400 almost. Because I think it's 2% and some change. So yeah, it'd be more like 16.6 at the end of the day. If I went through the vault, it'd be about 16.6 to get a first edition Charizard and a 9. But anyways, so this one I'm definitely facing some dilemmas of like, this would be a sick card to try and get regraded, but it would be really expensive. Again, it would probably be around $300 to have this card graded. If I sent it over to Beckett, it would be $80 to have it graded. Or I could go with CGC, but then I'm worried that the card would sit and it would be a lackluster listing because it's be CGC. I really think cards like this, like vintage grails like this, they do best with PSA. I think a lot of people know that. I'm not knocking CGC. I have my own experience with CGC, but nothing really crazy bad. Just stuff sits for a little bit. But there is a market for it. Beckett, I like the Beckett slabs, so I think this would cross over nicely into being like a Beckett 7. And I think if it was a Beckett 7, I could easily get more than what I'm trying to get for it. 5.5 is like high. It's on the higher end for a PSA slab. But if this was a 7, a Beckett 7 with the subgrades, and I'd probably get at least $6,000 for this card after cracking it and sending it to a different company. So these are really, really tough decisions to make. Ultimately, you also have to factor in that extra money, the extra time, the risk that when they crack it out or when you crack it out, they're going to damage the card. You're going to damage the card. It's like stressful stuff, and it might seem trivial that I've talked for almost 40 minutes about your options as far as regrading, and with PSA, you know, the higher level the card, the higher the tier, the grading costs, it can get very expensive very quick. This is much easier with Modern. This is much easier with Modern when we're talking about $15 per card to grade, and a lot of cards that are over $200 in value, you know, $250, $300, maybe even $350. A lot of those cards can still slip through bulk. This was something else that was brought up. Well, I think I already brought this up, but if they damage your card while it's in bulk, you're not going to get compensated what the card is probably really worth. You're going to get the $200 compensation because that's the grading tier that you sent it in with. So it can be a risk. And there's other reasons too, I'm sure, that I'm not mentioning, but there's definitely a risk with trying to slip under the radar with bulk tier grading. Anyways, that's kind of my rant. It'll be interesting to see what you guys think. You know, would that be interesting content? I think it's definitely less nerve-wracking. You know, with Rayquaza and Charizard, you know, these are two pretty big cards, honestly, in my collection. They're not the nicest versions, right? But they're pretty high up there. This 5 is honestly pretty strong. And this 9 is very, very close to being like Gem Mint, in my opinion. Those would be scary to crack open. This, on the other hand, at the cost level that it is, it's not a crazy card. I know I could find another, but it would be very interesting to see if I could get that dirt off there. And then to see if this card would either get a 9 again. One thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the massive risk, though, of regrading and you get a worse grade. If this card got an 8, I would literally be burning money. Now, I am confident this card would 9 again. I have literally no lack of confidence that this card would 9 again. I even have confidence that it might 10. I'm very confident that this card could 10 because the 10 that I'm looking at right now looks like it has nicked corners. This card is just phenomenal, in my opinion. I think it would do really well if it was regraded. But it'll be interesting to see what you guys think of that. Are you guys facing some of those dilemmas with your cards? Is this something that maybe some of you have more experience with that you can let me know firsthand? I've had really good experiences. You know, I've had really good experiences cracking my slabs, Orion. They always seem to do better. I take them out, I clean them up, and they get a higher grade. Or Orion, I send stuff in for cross grading, and it always tends to do better. I'm very picky about the cards that I pick up. I try to pick very strong, lower grade candidates. Like my friend with the PSA 8, it must have been a very strong PSA 8 for it to get a BGS 9.5. And then there's, of course, you know, everything in this hobby is almost subjective, and you know, it's difficult to say that it'll be easy for you to cross grade certain cards. Like there's definitely a level of luck that comes into play with cross grading. And then the final thing is, when you guys are in these situations, do you mainly just take the path of least resistance? Do you just buy the card in the grade that you want, or a higher grade, but it looks or appears like it's a better card overall? Or am I just crazy? Am I just overthinking this whole thing? Sometimes owning these cards can be very stressful, especially for some of us that literally our collections match what we make in a year in some cases. Like it's scary, and you want to get your value out of this stuff. It's not all about money, but when you want very high-end cards, money continues to come into the equation, into the conversation, into the discussion, and it makes it very difficult to gauge what a good decision is and what, you know, the best play is for this stuff. So it'll be interesting to hear from you guys, and I hope you guys are having a fantastic night. That's all I got for you. We will have some stuff coming up. My sister was nice enough to get me a Paradox Rift blister pack. Yo, shout out to Big Sis. And then also she was nice enough to get some loose packs, which probably not the best idea, Big Sis, because I don't trust buying loose packs from anybody. But Scarlet Violet, we got Scarlet Violet in here. We got Obsidian Flames in here. These are, in my opinion, this is a shop. And she probably got these at the shop, and they're probably all weighed. But we'll find out. I don't know. I'm very skeptical with this hobby. If it's not sealed, if it's not brand new, I tend to get pretty skeptical with modern Pokemon cards. We got a Paldea Vault pack in there. So we got a little variation in here. We also have some mail that we need to bring up. I got something that I'm very excited to announce that I got from TikTok. It goes into my theme deck collection, so I'm very excited to bring that up because I got a really good deal on it on TikTok. And then we got another package from TikTok. We got another $70 Mew UPC from 151. Guys, we are 2 cards away from completing this set by pulling every single card. We need Nidoking and Hyper Rare Mew. That's it. And we're done with this set. I'm hoping we end up pulling another SIR on Wednesday night, so stay tuned for that. I'm forgetting again. Is it Monday? Tuesday? I think it's Tuesday. But anyways, I guess tomorrow night, stay tuned, because we'll be doing the live, and we'll open up another UPC, and we'll continue our hunt for 151. We are creeping up on 5,000 subscribers as well. Again, if you're new to the channel, another friendly reminder, okay? Because this is a big deal for me. I could take a massive loss from this, and I could also have a massive gain and huge win from this. Arguably, I could pull one of my nicest cards in my collection. So this is a big deal. We will be opening one of the 8 base set unlimited heavy packs that we have in this box. I traded and sold all of the other ones that I had at Collecticon here in Charlotte. I decided I wasn't going to let those go quite yet because I have other plans for them. And honestly, this channel is doing very well right now. I think it's time to let it rip and open something phenomenal. Regardless how it goes, I'm really excited to share that stuff with you guys. Anyways, you guys have a fantastic night. This video is way too long. Peace. And thank you for watching.